Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné, our top stories. DRC government says there will be no elections rerun despite many irregularities according to church leaders. Our special year in review for 2023 continues, focus this time on the economy. Political turmoil, climate change, inflation. How did many nations navigate through the storms? 10 years after his death, Nelson Mandela's memory lives on, but some institutions bearing his name are struggling to stay the course. DRC government says it will not cancel the results of last week's presidential elections, despite calls from the opposition for a full rerun, citing alleged fraud. On Wednesday, police forcibly broke up a banned march in the capital, Kinshasa, by people protesting against the way the presidential and legislative elections was conducted. And an election observation mission run by church leaders noted numerous cases of irregularities.
One candidate is well ahead of the others. At the same time, we also note significant irregularities that are likely to affect the integrity of the vote in some locations. Therefore, we call on the competent authorities, the Electoral Commission, and the Constitutional Court to take a serious look into these issues before validating the results.
After a visit in Uganda, the leader of Sudan's paramilitary RSF is in Ethiopia. Mohamed Hamdan Daglo's first tour abroad since war erupted with Sudan's army in April. He met with Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to discuss peace and stability. The RSF commander and his rival Army Chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan have yet to meet face-to-face since the outbreak of fighting between their forces that has killed over 12,000 people and forced millions to flee. Russia's embassy has reopened its doors in Burkina Faso after nearly 32 years without a diplomatic presence in the West African nation. It follows an October deal to construct a nuclear power plant in Faso. The country had distanced itself from France, its historic partner, since the ruling junta came into power in a coup in September 2022. And meanwhile, Niger is back in business with Benin. Nigerian goods will transit again through the port of Cotonou. Following 5 months of sanctions, the West African regional bloc, ECOWAS, had put pressure on Niger following a coup on July 26, and the measures have led to the closure of the border with Benin. And as we're getting ready to say goodbye to 2023, we continue our year in review, looking back at major events on the continent and beyond. Today, our focus is economy, and our guest is Alexander Kateb. He's an economist and founder and chairman of the Multipolarity Report. So welcome, Alexander. So 2023 was the year of, I said it earlier, many coups, effects of climate change, wars. So what economic impact did it have on different parts of the continent?
Well, I think, as you mentioned, 2033 was a year of multiple crises, but economic, financial crisis, and also geopolitical crisis, and the compound effect on the African economies was pretty bad, I must say. But you have to look at the picture with a finer grain and to assess the situation and the outlook country by country. Because even though overall many African countries struggled this year, there were some stories of resilience across the continent. For example, in Morocco, in Senegal, in some part of Eastern Africa as well, in some part of Southern Africa. So overall, it was not all black and white, but the impact of the monetary tightening on the global stage, especially in the United States and Europe and other economies, has been felt in Africa, mostly on the cost of debt service, which is really an increasing burden on the budget of many African countries.
And already for 2024, some analysts seem to think that the situation might improve for the global economy. What about Africa?
Well, the picture is mixed for the global economy, I think, because there are some signs of resilience and even of enduring growth. For example, in the United States, the Eurozone might escape a recession, but this is not so far a settled call. So there is still a lot of downside risk ahead for these major economies. China is struggling to find its ground from its economic slowdown and real estate crisis. So all these factors weigh on the African economies, which are mostly weaker than their non-regional counterparts. So there will be a lot of need for structural reforms, for fiscal measures to contain the spread of the global crisis and to try to find a way to a more inclusive and faster growth across the continent.
So we'll see for 2024. But back to this year, Africa, as we know, is being courted by China, Russia, the United States. What about any progress in terms of investment and trade volume?
Well, actually, across the planet, 2023 was a year of slowdown in terms of foreign direct investment, and Africa didn't really escape this trend. So far, there have been some investment and some initiatives from the United States, for example, to increase its engagement in Africa, and this has been championed by the Biden administration. But we have seen very little impact on the ground, I must say. And as for Europe, or other economies like China, they are looking at different investment opportunities, but much more selectively than in the past. So overall, the case must be made for Africa, and it must be made at the local and sub-regional level by the different states and organizations. So again, you have to look with more granularity at the sub-regional and at the national level for the growth and resilience stories that are available there.
And also this year we saw the arrival of new BRICS countries like Egypt and Ethiopia. Is it a good thing?
It is a very good thing, I think, for these countries to diversify their partnerships and to engage other major and middle powers in trying to think about a new global multilateral system, a system in which they will have their say, and they will also benefit from different cross-country initiatives between the BRICS Plus countries, the current members and the upcoming members, starting from October 2024 in Kazan. And this will be especially felt on the financial and monetary level, for which there are many discussions to try to increase the share of trade that is settled in local currencies, for example, and try to find alternatives to the dollar-based system.
Thank you very much, Alexander Khateb. We'll meet again next year for the same update.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, the world just commemorated Nelson Mandela's 10 years after his death. Although his name and legacy still live on, what about the institutions that bear his name? Our correspondents in South Africa went to find out. from the trust that's supposed to manage his legacy to family feuds tainting Mandela's name today.
It was here, on the corner of 12th Avenue in Johannesburg, that Nelson Mandela lived when he was president. But this house, which has seen the world's highest dignitaries pass through its doors, is now abandoned. Mandela had specified in his will that his grandsons could live there, but nobody took responsibility to pay municipal bills amounting to 20,000 euros. This grandson deplores the attitude of the trust in charge of his grandfather's inheritance.
The water bill was becoming too expensive. We then figured out that there was a water leak in one of the very big palm trees. We then fixed that water leak. Still, the trust is not willing to help maintain the house or pay electricity or pay municipal bills at all.
The Mandela Foundation was also tarnished by controversy when its director was forced to resign in June. A researcher present since the foundation's inception says Madiba was already worried before his death about the direction in which the country was moving.
Well, I spent a lot of time with Madiba looking at the reports of terrible failures of service delivery, corruption, Madiba reading his newspapers. It's in that context that I saw his pain and heard his pain. So where we are landing today in 2023, I'm in pain when I see what we're dealing with.
Madiba's dream to build a children's hospital came true in 2017. However, it is operating at half capacity while the oncology and 2 other wards are closed due to insufficient funds. The government cannot afford to increase its subsidies.
The patients are knocking at the door. They're getting referrals that we cannot bring in. And so for us, once we have the funding, we know definitely that we're going to grow.
Without Nelson Mandela, the institutions that bear his name are struggling to raise funds that could change more lives for the better.
Tributes were paid to playwright Mbongeni Ngema. The South African theatre legend died in a car crash, aged 68. He was best known for his musical Sarafina, which was later adapted into a film starring Whoopi Goldberg. The musical became an international success and was even nominated for the Tony and Grammy Awards. President Cyril Ramaphosa led tributes to the artist. And with these pictures, that's it for this edition of Eye on Africa. Coming up next, more news on France 24.